Before we will start, the material is there. So the title and what we prepared today is an Agile quest and how it is done in game dev quest, because it is one of the most common words in game dev. So game, AAAs, big ones are having a great quest. So it's like a mission, it's like some journey. So we called it quests. And before we will introduce ourselves, we have prepared a short one of the first teasers of the Phantom Liberty, the latest extension pack we released as a studio. And yeah, we wanted to show you it, but let's get rid of the frame. Thank you, Magic. And I hope it will work like this.
Repeat after me. I, V, do solemnly swear.
I, V, do solemnly swear
that I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
That I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
On behalf of all Americans, I thank you for your service.
You know, taking that oath. Bad idea.
Okay, thank you. So, it was from 2022, and the date was 2023, so you see it was on time. And with quality, what we heard recently. Okay, so let's start with who we are. My name is Konrad, and I have 20 years of experience, 15 years in leadership positions somehow. And I joined the project Red 2 years ago because of my competences and experience in high, let's say, the big transformations, the high-level transformations, and the complex ones. So I'm here with today.
Hi guys, I'm Mateusz. I have also over 20 years of experience working as a. Actually, I joined CD Projekt Red like less than 2 years ago. But before that, I was working as a developer, as a manager, and agile coach in software companies, basically. So that's about me. And I play the guitar, yeah.
Okay, so we prepared some nice backgrounds, which were prepared by our marketing. So we used the best quality. We thought it would be a full screen, but okay, it looks nice. So some facts for those who doesn't know it. Game dev as an industry is bigger than the music and movie sectors combined. So you can check it in Wikipedia or whatever. Estimated game dev market value in 2 years, it will be more than $200 billion. So a quite cake to share in terms of the money and the stake. Okay, in terms of CD Projekt Red, we have our purpose, and the purpose is really strong. This is why it is here, and I will not interpret it. I will just show it to you. It is in our strategy. In CD Projekt Red/strategy, you can check a lot of materials. There is a lot of transparency for investors and for all of you guys. So, as a studio, we create revolutionary role-playing games with memorable stories that inspire gamers. And that is true. So each person, each dev, each developer in a studio feels it and lives this purpose. Okay, so you are Agile practitioners, so for sure we should have a problem statement, because we are talking about transformation, right? So there was a problem to solve, and the statement, the high level is that AAA games are extremely complex. This is what we will share today. But in behind, we can say that if you will apply the traditional methods of development, of organization, then you will end up with hundreds, because the game is built by hundreds of developers. You will end up with those guys sitting somewhere disconnected, managed by tasks, and disconnected to the product itself, to the game itself. And in game dev, the most important is feeling and this touch, the feeling that it's there, it's working, we can feel it, I can play it. It's not a sum of its parts, it's like only, it's something more. You need to have something on top. Yeah, and for sure there was a tipping point for a transformation. It wasn't a Phantom Liberty, but it was a Cyberpunk 2027 release itself. So maybe most of you remember that 2 years ago, there was I called it one of the launches to remember in the game development industry. We have prepared some let's say reasons, some root causes, which will give you some picture. So there was a launch for all generation of consoles, a business decision. From one hand, there were expectations, and from the second, there were boundaries. So the boundaries were really strict in terms of the previous generation of consoles. We have a local silo optimizations, the things which I told you that there were super positive devs who wanted to make the best local thing in their discipline, in their area, but somehow it didn't connect together. So the late integration. We will talk about some new rules we have now, but those times there was a late integration and really it's somehow erupted on the end. Poor scope management, everything is important because my thing is the most important. I need to have the best quality. And expectations outside versus development capabilities. So one more time, this contradiction between what we said we will do and what we were really doing. The answer to this was the Red 2.0 transformation. I am a servant leader for this transformation since I joined. This is how I introduce myself. And and Red 2.0 transformation statement is that we are looking for a whole studio, and we are connecting development, business, marketing, communication, back office together to build the exceptional AAA development games, to connect everybody. So it's not only done by the one part of the studio. Yeah, and some details how we approached it. Yesterday there were some workshops about the flight levels. So yeah, we are using it in our transformation, and there are 3 flight levels, of course, in Red 2.0. Sometimes we say that the 0 one or the 4th one is the culture. This is what I like to say. And the first one, going from top to bottom, strategy and studio evolution. So we have a board leading by example. They are doing a lot of, they are giving a lot of attention. They are caring about it. They are stretching themselves, really. They are making a lot of training, some workshops, and they are caring about the change and about the evolution. Transformation is a part of the strategy. The top goals of the studio, from the separated task list, aligning goals, something what was really impactful, and company values. Yeah, we have them, not too many, but really powerful. The second layer, the tactical one, it is called, the parallel AAA roadmap, because we are doing more than one game at a time, and the key processes. So we are managing also the processes there. And we have a cohesive leadership team. So there is finally a cohesive team from the senior leaders who are working together. Yeah, we are using some tools, some methods like OKRs, but we are experimenting and customizing a lot. So this is about experimenting, checking, and adapting. So we were doing a pivots. Now we have a 3rd cycle, and we are pivoting one more time, discovering what works for us, and the best people. So everybody together are figuring out how we can have the best people inside the studio, because the best people make the best games. And the level, the tactical one, but the most interesting one, I think, for you, Mateusz will have the insights about it, so I'm not spoiling anything. The effective AAA development. And there is always working game rule. So we are not integrating late. Now, since the first moments of the pre-production, already the game is working. So you can play it, and we can play the game and iterate on a living product together. We have team patterns, for sure. We are adapting a lot of frameworks, methods, and we are adapting them to the parts of the organizations. And we are not, applying it blindly, straightforward. We are changing and experimenting. And milestone iterations. So each project, for example, Phantom Liberty has a lot of people. They were iterating, and we are really embedded in the new production processes. So now, Mateusz, I'm giving you a clicker, and Mateusz will share with you the insights of the effective AAA development.
Before I dive into the structure, and the framework we were using for Phantom Liberty, let me quickly, very briefly, talk about the complexity we're dealing with in game dev. So, game is pretty a complex product. It's super complex. It's a software, also with some narration, with some new tech, rendering tech, with audio, music. It's a lot of things that need to come together in order to create something that is cohesive. That's very hard to do. So there are a lot of different people, different disciplines, different talents working together to create this state-of-the-art in software, actually. So we have, we have software developers for sure, right? We have engine rendering the coders. We have concept artists. We have animators. We have cinematic animators, cinematic designers, quest designers, UI designers, and you can go like that for very long. It's more than 20, even having close to 30 different disciplines and different talents, types of talents doing stuff. And in case of Phantom Liberty, there were like over 300 people in total, like 350 even more. But that was just an expansion. But if you're thinking about the whole new game from scratch, it can easily go to 500 and 1,000 and maybe even more in some cases. So that's a huge and complex system, actually, that we need to somehow manage. All right. So if that's not enough, we have also so each and every team or discipline creates some kind of features or building blocks, and they go through a certain life cycle. Okay, so let's take an example of a weapon. So if we want to create a weapon in a game, we first draw it. So we concept it on a paper, or in not paper but virtual paper. Then we design it, and by design I mean like how it's going to work, what kind of weapon that's actually going to be, and stuff like that. So we have different kinds of weapons in Cyberpunk, but it's actually true for most of the games. Then we prototype. If there's something we need to prove, we prototype it on the side and see if things are working as we wanted them to work. Then there's draft. Draft is the first implementation in the game that it can have a shape of a chicken actually, but still you can like try to use it. But this is basically draft. This is not releasable, definitely, because then we go to alpha and beta, which are basically higher and higher quality things in our game. Beta is the first shippable, actually, and polish is the version we really want it to be in the end, so that it looks, sounds, and feels amazing. Okay, so this is what we aim for. Each phase is reviewed so that we don't go in a direction that we don't want to go. So if for instance, someone drew a wrong picture, we get feedback very early so that we don't end up with designing the whole weapon and then learning that actually that wasn't what we wanted to have. So that was for a weapon, but this is not enough. This is just a couple of disciplines, and they're like I said, 30. But if there are also cross-functional teams, I'll talk about that later. And it's a very, very complex system that all these disciplines, all these teams depend on each other. We of course would like to have the whole game in say alpha stage, but it's not always pragmatic and not always possible. Actually, it never happens. But we try, and the goal is to release the game in one time, right? So everyone polish at the same time. That's super hard. How did we approach that? I will be saying some bits about how we organize that, and you will recognize some less or safe things there. But actually, because we took this inspiration from these frameworks, but also, we adapted that to our complexity and our situation, which is a little bit, I would say, I'm coming from software development, so for me it was like, wow, something very, very new. So it all starts with game director and executive producer. This is the most important people in the whole project. Then we divided the whole team into areas. There were narration, gameplay, sandbox, and art. So narration was responsible for main quest and minor quests. So basically, the cinematics and dialogues, everything that is the main quest is done by this area. Then there was gameplay area, which was responsible for gameplay. So things like AI, things like player progression, perks, UI. This was all done by this area. Sandbox, aka open world, is basically responsible for all things not quests. So if you are not doing quests at this point, you are wandering around the world, and you basically have the world, and this is done by these guys. So all the encounters, random smaller quests as well. So there was some narration also in this group, but their focus was mostly basically open world. And last but not least, art, which was responsible for the visual and audio side of the game. Each area had multiple teams from 3 to 12, something like this. It depends. Shifted with time, but most of these teams were multidisciplinary. But some of them wasn't, and I will just let me describe it a little bit more. So multidisciplinary teams were basically teams created of multiple disciplines. So that makes sense, hopefully. But how do you create a multidisciplinary team when you have like 20 disciplines? Well, we started with teams of 20 people. That wasn't like there were actually all the disciplines in this team, but we basically wanted to verify what is the actual team size we really think is working in our context. And it turned out that after a few iterations that 10 of the core people, I'm talking about narration right now because it's different in different areas, but just an example. So we ended up with 10 people, like core team members, like really like doing everything that teams usually do, like working together very closely and daily. But also there were other 10 people, we call them friends of this team, that were working with them closer, but not that close as the core team, but they were helping them to achieve their goals. And the disciplinary teams, on the other hand, they were single discipline, and there were also two types of them, and very quickly, the first type was just a central team, like let's say you wanted to have a table. You just go to such a team and ask for a table, And then you can use that in cinematics, you can use that in open world anywhere, actually, because they basically gave that to you. And the other type was mostly these friends of these multidisciplinary teams working here and there, but actually led by a discipline lead that was taking care that everything built by this discipline was aligned and cohesive. Right, so enough about team. Let's move to the framework and how we did manage that in time. So the central part of our process is the milestone. Milestone lasts for 9 weeks, mostly, and it's divided into 3 sprints that last 3 weeks each. Simple maths. It kicks off with milestone planning. I will be talking about each of them in a sec, so just briefly. It kicks off with milestone planning, then we are doing this kind of playthroughs, the playthroughs throughout the whole milestone. And it ends up with additional week. So in total, actually, it's 10, but it's 9 weeks of the milestone and 1 week of a transition week, where we do things. I will tell in a sec. So let's talk about milestone planning. So milestone planning was a huge gathering of people, like everyone, 300 people joining one call and looking at this example. This is, I hope it's blurred enough so you don't see the details. This is intentional, by the way, because this is taken from the real board. So everyone was, using this board as a central piece of the milestone planning. Milestone planning took 2 days, and it started with standard things like how the previous milestone went, and the goals for the next milestone was, of course, communicated by directors and product owners. So, but then all the teams went to their own rooms, planning the milestone. So the important thing was they were planning for 9 weeks, so the appropriate level of abstraction had to be kept. So they were planning mostly on like stories and stuff. And throughout this process, a lot of dependencies were spawned. So, wow, I need to ask some other team to do something for us because we need to accomplish this. So we had this thing on the right, which is called dependency cube. Actually, it's not a cube. It's a grid. We call it a cube. It's basically rows and columns are teams, and whenever someone wanted to resolve some dependency, they just put a card on that in the proper place. And then in the second day, we went through this board. We had a long session to basically resolve these dependencies. So the backlog was amended by this. Nice thing about this is that you cannot see this, but in one of the calls, the whole leadership was actually waiting for anyone to ask questions, to resolve problems, conflicts, any prioritization issues, or anything basically. So that was working really great, and people were actually coming. So that was amazing. Now playthroughs. Playthroughs are kind of a backlog refinement tool for us. How it works? A playthrough is a meeting where 1 to few hours long, when there's a topic, like let's say you would like to play the first 30 minutes of the second quest. So who does develop that? And we just grab people from leaders and people responsible for developing this, and like 10 to 20 people were just playing the game. Someone grabbed the controller and was streaming to everyone else. And everyone else, and the whole team was actually, talking about how does it feel? Is it emotionally good or not? Is it visually correct or whatever? Is it enough? Are there any issues with the gameplay, with the progression, with the narration, with how people are acting? Because we also record people acting, mock-ups, stuff like this. So that was really great because we had this always working game, so we could always do that. With some exceptions. There was some, but it's, mostly it was working. Yeah, and we pivoted many times actually, but not many, few times. Okay, few times we pivoted, few times. So that was really great. And last but not least, transition week. Transition week was this week in between milestones. And that was great. And it was great because the goal for everyone, 300 people, is like they cancel all the meetings, don't touch the editor, don't touch anything, just play the game for a week, okay? How cool is that? And if someone wasn't playing, that was bad. That was bad. We were hunting for these people. Really, really. When I joined, I was like, I don't play, that works. That was really strange at the beginning, but I get used to that. So basically, but again, this transition week always had some kind of a goal to like play the main quest, like the whole story, or play the side quests, or try open world, things like that. So we were gathering feedback, of course, and because there's a great mass of people to actually play the game before being released. But I think also what is a huge win here is that if I was working on this weapon I was talking about before, I not necessarily know how the weapon is used or what is basically how the story looks like, because I don't have that much time unless I play after hours. But this was the great opportunity for everyone to get the big picture of what the game is, what the product is, and basically aligning and also being like inspired. That was it. So basically, this is how it looked in general. I think the common thing for all of the things I was talking about is transparency, and that helped with alignment. So I truly think that this things like communication, transparency helps with alignment, which tremendously help with organizing this huge group of diverse people with 30 disciplines and actually releasing on time this time.
Yeah, and in terms of releasing on time, we have recently released, we have even the party last week, the whole studio, the concert on the garage, on the stadium we have, etc. So the campus is really great. And so some latest, because if the transformation is a success, I think it's ultimately measured by the success of its product, right? So we are not there to make the agile games, we are doing the product. So after those 2 years, I think that the reception and the ratings and the reviews are really amazing, and it is sad that the project did it again. So it was not only a release of Phantom Liberty, but also it was a release of the base game with a 2.0 version. So the game is fixed, expansion is great, and I think I'm convinced that it is a success story, and the ratings are very positive. So yeah, just to sum up what we said, every good presentation has final thoughts. So we have also, one more time. Game dev is extremely complex system. So if there's any system thinking expert and would like to, sign the NDA and work a little bit with us to discover and to help, just call me. Red 2.0 transformation is a success story measured by the success of the product released. If we will fail the product, I would not say that. And we have addressed during those years all 3 flight levels as in separate system parts. This is what I said, that everything needs to connect and everybody needs to understand what we are doing and how the system works. So yeah, it's not only bottom up, top down, it's everything connected. I think we're there somehow almost on time.
So, about the dependencies, do you change anything with your structure to get rid of them?
Yeah, you remember the cube? So there was analysis. There was analysis of the hotspots, and finally there was interactions between teams. So if the hotspot was really recurring, yeah, for sure. But it wasn't that we said that the process needs to be like this. It was that teams and devs, they wanted to somehow fix that and change. So the communication or sometimes the flow between teams in terms of some people with the skills, yeah, it was possible. So we are adapting and customizing the process each time, and we are iterating. So it was possible almost constantly. So this is the answer.
Okay, next question. If you are adapt many practices, can you share what agile things you used 1 year ago and how it works today, how it evolved?
Yeah, so as you can see, we were inspired by less, we were inspired by some PA planning stuff, but not, implementing it like this. We are experimenting with measuring things, with iterations, with flow-based things like the first presentation today, the opening ones. So a lot of flow is there also, it's not only going circles. So, yeah, I think now, for example, in the next project, yeah, we are also adapting the methods. And okay, I can list them, but it's like all the time, check if it works. And in our teams, devs will really quickly tell us, or we can feel that something doesn't work, so you need to change. And we are adapting using our skills and their experience in making games, right, to connect both and then have a good product.
So there's maybe one more thing to add. So actually, what I noticed after 1 year is that people got used to this framework a lot, and we use it much more fluently than at the beginning. What we didn't cover, though, in this presentation is how the process, the game production process changes in time, and that's basically at the beginning there's an ideation, then pre-production, then production, and closing. So for the actually half a year or so, for the last half a year, and maybe even more for a year, we were actually in the closing phase. So that was evolving naturally because we had to actually change. So the things that were working great for production had to be changed later on for closing, which was like now we need to finish at this date. We just don't iterate that much. Still iterated, but we were focused on closing. So that is also dynamic in this respect. So it's not only it isn't like that at this point for sure.
Okay. Most AAA gaming studios release unfinished games, beta level, such as original Cyberpunk, Diablo 4 or Starfield. Will Agile change it for the new releases in CD?
Play Phantom Liberty.
It already did, actually. Of course, there's it is super complex and it's not perfect. It doesn't have zero bugs. It for sure there is some glitches there, but I think we are in a very good spot, and it proves that it works basically.
Okay, tough questions. How much cost milestone planning, and do you really need 300 people on that meeting?
Yeah, so Mateusz mentioned about the transition week, so there was a playing of the game, but also all the plannings and the dependency, the pre-planning also with the leaders, what wasn't mentioned was there. And it was also a COVID, remember, times. So we went online. Inside the project, it was 1 weekend when the studio transformed to the online. So it is like spending time of everybody, of the 300 people, is like 1 hour together when there's a summary, when there are goals, and then everybody are going to their context of their teams. There are local facilitators. We have a great team of producers who are working there. So it is already in the context. So we are minimizing the, let's say, the overall big events, and as much as possible we are using the team space, but they need to know what they are doing. So everything is pre-prepared, pre-discussed, the goals are ready, and somehow it is the maximizing the time and the value which or what the process is delivering. So there are no long big events when we are just spending the time aka money.
Okay. Next question. What do you have in your DoD, if you have?
Who, me?
Well, you as a team. Do you have a definition of done and for your teams? Or if yes, what do you have inside?
So yeah, actually, with every milestone planning, there is we set a goal, which is described in this kind of manner, like what does it mean to achieve this goal, and for each discipline we have a definition. Like let's say, cinematic animation should be in alpha everywhere, and definition of alpha, what I was talking about, alpha, beta, and stuff. Definition of alpha for each and every discipline is also written down. So we have this, but we don't say about all the details during this big meeting, of course. But everyone understands what does it mean to be an alpha in animation. What is very hard to describe is emotions, because ultimately we create emotions. This is, I think, the ultimate goal of games and art in general. It's very hard to describe this, so that when it's done, it's very subjective.
There is still a lot of questions, so I will ask two more, and the one will be this one that is most voted. Yes, I will ask this question. How rapid is your prototyping? How long are you prototyping cycles for different pieces of the game?
How rapid? It's rapid enough to release on time. I will say that. So I don't think I will tell such a details unless you sign the NDA. So I think it's it's enough for us, and for sure we are improving, and that's the answer. Sorry.
And I will ask this question, otherwise we all die from starving here. When is The Witcher 4?
The Witcher 4 saga is in our strategy.
There's no Witcher 4.
It's
Polaris, right?
Yeah, it's like but it's a next Witcher, right? So Witcher saga. It's called. It's in our strategy. You can read about it and listen to our board guys, board members, and it's called Polaris. So it has some approximate release dates, but I will refer you to watch the strategy, and for sure there will be some refresh
in the future, basically.
Yeah,
Thank you.
In the future. Thanks, Mateusz.
Thank you very much.